talked a lot about newspapers. We've talked about where we've been, and it's been a bit of a sad story. But now, in this class, we're going to be talking about where we can go forward and how we can use the new technologies and the new media landscape to be civically involved and informed. And one of the tools that's emerging is AI. And at the end of the class, you'll have an opportunity to do a little exercise using an AI app. I just wanted to, how many of you already have an AI app on your phone? Okay.
Right.
And so those of you who do not, you have the option, it's not required, to try out the exercise we're going to have at the end. And I encourage you, if you do not, there are a number of AI apps available. There's Claude, there's ChatGPT, there's Gemini, which a lot of you may already be using and not know it when you're searching on Google. And then there's Perplexity, and there's another one called DeepSeek. So I just wanted to list off those names. I don't care what app you use, but if you want to download one, then you'll be able to participate at the end. But totally up to you what you want to do. And Tom, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for coming here. This has been extremely interesting for me. I thought I was up to date on my knowledge of the media, but putting a little work in getting ready for this, there's a lot that we have to deal with. And we're going to try and move pretty quick today. We've looked at how great certain things were in the past and how screwed up things have gotten. And I guess the theme of this is, what the hell are we all going to do about it? So let's go.
Let's go. So again, I don't know if everyone has been attending all along. Tom is the he was a longtime reporter and editor at the Santa Cruz Sentinel. And I worked in a past life as a newspaper reporter for a number of papers in the Los Angeles area, Louise Yarnall. So in case there's anybody new, that's who we are. And then again, this is the agenda for today. And actually, before we dive in, you're going to, going back to the hero's journey framing. We're in the cave right now, and how are we going to get out? And we have to kind of pull together our resources. We have to figure out what we can do and what we really probably shouldn't be doing if we want to get out of the cave that we're in. And so we'll be talking a little bit about we haven't talked a lot about national news trends, a little bit, but we're actually going to talk a little bit about the political elements of that today, which we have kind of avoided till now. We're going to base that conversation in some of the research, and that will give us just an indication of some of the things to look out for, some of the cautionary tips on how to proceed. So let me go into, Tom, I think this is where you wanted to start with what happens with the population and the electorate.
Well, yeah, you look around, and as we examined the local landscape, we said that this already, right here in Santa Cruz, the media picture is really pretty divided into a lot of different places. And what I believe is happening is people who read the Sentinel may not be reading the Good Times. They may or may not be looking at Channel 8. They may or may not be looking at a website like Santa Cruz Local. And each one has its niche. But what I'm seeing as I look around town, and as I look at, God's sake, around the country, is we're segmenting into little groups. And and unlike the days of the newspaper, there's not one source, not one take on what's happening. We're all seeking, I didn't realize until we started taking this class of how many places I was going, different websites, to get the day's news. And each day was different. I couldn't really say that I was devoted to one over another. I'd pick up the Sentinel, but some days I would, and unless there was some reason for me to grab it. I'm retired now, so my interests are much more diverse than they used to be, and probably a lot shallower than they used to be. But but so I looked at myself, and my information needs have really changed. And I can't say that it's practical to go back to one source. It's just not going to happen. So are we all going to be in our little camps? Are we going to fight against that and have some general understanding of what it takes to be a good citizen, a good human being, and live in this country?
Right. Thank you. And, we have in the past few weeks reviewed some things. So I'm calling them design constraints, like as we try to put our little kit together and we try to figure out how we're going to design kind of a solution, a media diet. One constraint is that only 8% of Americans feel they should pay for news. And I know I too, I don't want to pay for every little piece of information I get. And so some of the diet is going to have to be free. And then I also feel, most Americans we saw are getting their news from digital and TV sources, really not print. I still love my print, but I have to admit, probably if I counted up the hours I spend with print versus digital or TV, digital and TV are winning right now. That's me. And I don't think I'm unique. And we did see some promising signs, but again, it's like double-edged sword, and we'll be talking about this. We saw in the Pew Research that 94% of Americans see, quote, doing their own research as important. And that's part of being a citizen, right? But again, Tom will speak about his concerns, and I'm sure many concerns are shared in this room about what that all means. And we'll have some data on what that means. But I wanted to start mentioning with the really heartening thing was that people trust local news. They still do. And that's a great starting point. So, but yeah.
Well, there's still
the own research though, Tom. Yeah. In the newsroom, how many times did you say that to the reporters?
Well, never. If I got an assignment, I can assure you the city editor did not say, but don't call anybody, just do your own research and write a story. And that's what people are doing to themselves now. I always felt that we all should have a city editor where we get approval for what we think for the rest of the day, or at least challenges for our beliefs. But people are not reading. There's again, I'm saying there's no common knowledge, and word of mouth seems to be. But we're going to find out. Word of mouth becomes more important in all our lives. The one thing that I want to bring up that is important to me is, I mean, I got it flew out of my head as soon as I said that.
Well, I did want to. I'll riff on something for a second, and it might come back.
I remember what.
Okay.
Is that and now it's gone again.
Oh, okay.
No, but what I wanted to point out is that if news is if you're hearing something and you're not paying for it, who is providing it and why are they providing it? If news is washing over you, it's because somebody wants you to listen to them and listen to the way they put it. And I think we have to resist that. Is why are they wanting to convince me of this? What I'd prefer doing is go out and find out what there is to learn, and I would rather learn than be convinced by somebody.
Right.
Something.
Well, and I wanted to add one more little touch of, the newsroom, because basically you're being indoctrinated, if you will, into a kind of a culture when you're in the newsroom. And it is really going against the grain of like the family argument at the dinner table, right? And that goes back to doing your own research. When you get ready to go out and cover a story, whatever your personal beliefs about that story or your biases or whether the people you're going to have to interview, you have got to like literally put that in a box and put it aside. And you have to, with your notepad, just listen to whatever's coming your way. And that is a real discipline. And and that's the only way you're going to learn, honestly, in my opinion, from other people's points of views.
Well, I think it's important to bring up the old standard in the newsroom. If your mother says she loves you, check it out.
Yeah. But I do think if just that image of when you're reading something or you're watching something, or two things. If it sounds too good to be true, it ain't true. It's almost 99% for sure. So if you're going along, you're like, yeah, that's how I see it, and and caution, red lights. And then I think you really also need to think of people. Always have that person in your mind at the dinner table who disagrees with everything you have to say, right? Like, imagine when you're covering something, not covering, when you're out learning about something. What is in their mind? Try to understand what might be in their mind. Oh, we have to close the window or anything? Okay. Yeah. So it's just having that alternate, person on your shoulder a little bit, and it helps you tamp down some of your own biases. All right. So I know we have diverse points of view here in the room, and we're not trying to promote one political party over the other, honestly. But this particular talk by former President Obama really helps us introduce some of the issues. So I told you first, we're going to talk a little bit about what to watch out for. Okay, so when we're putting our kit together, we're getting ready to leave the cave, we have to know where not to be going or where are the guardrails. And so we're going to spend a little time. We'll try to move through it quickly. What you have to kind of watch out for. But this is actually a sort of a happy news in a way. I saw it as happy news. And I do want to frame it. He's going to talk about what's called the Fox News study. I want to say, and the researchers, I went back and looked at the paper, and you can see it when you get the email. This same study could have been done on MS Now or MSNBC folks. Okay, I just want to be clear that and even the researchers said, hey, we should try to do it on the other side too. But let's hear what he has to say.
By the way, there was just recently a report that confirms what I feel and what I've seen, and anecdotally, it's just one study that was done. Interesting study though. They paid a pretty large cohort of Fox News watchers to watch CNN for a certain period of time. Do you see this? And it was, and these are very hardcore conservatives, not Biden voters, not central, sort of swing voters. These were folks who watch Hannity and Tucker Carlson and so forth. And after a relatively short period of time, what it showed is that their views on issues, controversial issues like immigration or police or vaccinations, had changed by 5, 8, 10%. Just simply by changing their diet. It hadn't turned them into liberals. It didn't make them want to vote for Joe Biden. They had just had access to a different set of information. And so I say that to suggest that I think we underestimate the degree of pliability in our opinions and our views.
Yeah, and that is the main point here. And this study, I'll talk about it a little more in the next slide. Oops, sorry. So what's going on in this graph here is echo chambers. And we are all flirting with echo chambers at all times now, just because of the way our new media world works. And what you're seeing here, I don't have a pointer, but I'm going to look here. I'm going to start on the right side. This is the sort of distribution of across the entire population of partisans. And we're using the red and the blue advisedly, and the Republican primary voter, the Republican non-primary voter, but the Republican. You see a lot of not registered non-party independents, and you see the Democratic non-primary voter and the Democratic primary voter. So here are your partisans, right? Now, when you go over to the national broadcast news, who's watching the broadcast news? As you can see, the shape of this column is a little closer to this one, right? It's a little more balanced. Yes, it is leaning toward the Democrats, but it's a little more balanced than like this one, which is who's watching CNN and this was done when it was still MSNBC, where it's mostly the Democratic leaning. And then same thing for Fox, where it's mostly the Republican leaning. Okay. Now, what I wanted to point out was these little groups here, the 28%, the 26% of independents who are watching Fox, the independents who are watching CNN. What are they doing? Why are they watching it? And so the researchers' theory on this is that basically people get into kind of a habit. There's something you like about the presentation. You might like the personalities. There's just something about it you're comfortable with. You're not particularly partisan. And you're going to sit and watch that news. And they checked all this on the back end. I just want to be clear on how they did this. And so basically what they're saying is people aren't omnivores. They're not going out and watching Fox News and saying, "Ooh, I just got Fox's view. Let me switch over to CNN or MS Now." That isn't how people are watching it. They're sitting down and they build a habit. And they're in an echo chamber and they don't even know they're in one. So how much of an echo chamber are we in? Where is that one graphic? This is the one I wanted to show you. This was when they did the study that he was talking about. They did it during September of 2020. And I want you all to put your brains back to September 2020. We were still in COVID. We had some fires burning, an orange sky here in the Santa Cruz area. We had an election going on between Biden and Trump. Well, this is on the top row here. That's what CNN was covering. Here are their stories. And on the right is how often Fox was covering the same stories. Okay? Go to the bottom. This is Fox. What were they covering? And how often was that showing up on CNN? All right? So this is the definition of an echo chamber. And this is on national, partisan cable television. But last week, when we were looking at our local sources of news, did we find a lot of overlap between what was being covered by these different sources? No, they were all covering slightly different things. And that is the big change from the old days, is how varied the information is. So that's the main thing I wanted to say. And let me actually, one more little detail on this particular one, just to give you an illustration of what the differences were. They talked about COVID coverage, the severity of COVID. Who do you think covered that more? CNN, 14 times more than Fox. Okay. All right. The other big story here. We had the Black Lives Matter stuff going on that summer. So who was more likely to cover Biden and racial protests? Fox. 12 times more. Okay. So those are just illustrations of things that you're moving in two completely different worlds and you're seeing the world very different. All right. Then there was another study done in the last few years. You can see it was actually 2018. We've always talked in media and communications classes. There might be some people who took some of those, agenda setting. And again, in the old media model, that was the picture of the newspaper picks the big issues that everyone's going to listen to.
We would meet like in January or February, and we'd say, what's up for the coming year? Is there going to be water? Is it going to be crime? Is it going to be housing? Probably all those subjects. In Santa Cruz, they all seem to stay on a few different subjects. But we would actually talk about, this is what's important. What are we looking for in the year ahead? And it changed, of course, because when you know what the news is going to be ahead of time. But we did do this setting the agenda thing at the beginning, where here's some of the things we're going to look at. over the course of the coming year, or I hope that we would. And that we'd get about halfway down the list, maybe, or forget about halfway down the list. But it was helpful to do it that way. And I think it actually was more helpful for me as a news consumer because it made me stop and think about what's important in my life.
Mhm.
And so that was,
Yeah, but, and
that
all
is agenda setting.
different news media products and the new media environment, they are doing the same things. They're sitting down and they're saying, what does our audience care about? And then they're kind of setting their tailor-made agenda, if you will. So who winds up?
What was different in our case was we weren't saying we're going to get this guy, we're going to promote this person, we're going to take Marty Wormhout and run her right to the White House.
Yeah, right.
We didn't do anything like that.
No, but how can you defend yourself against an echo chamber? And this is one of those things in the kit bag as we get ready to get out of the cave. It was the passive audience. It was the sort of, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I'm tired. I'm going to crack open a beer. I'm going to flip on the channel I always have on at 5 o'clock or whatever it is. And that's me. I'm just going to, that's passive. And you're going to be in the echo chamber if you're passive. They actually have studied this. So if your media diet is one thing at the same time every day, you're probably going to be in the echo chamber and you might not even know you're in one. But the active ones, the ones who are sort of a little more like omnivores, kind of switching, moving around, they can avoid falling into the echo chamber. So that's just a thing to keep in mind. Okay, so we're going to chat now. I want to know, how conscious are you of being in an echo chamber? Whether national news or local news or both? Yeah, who feels like they're in the echo chamber? Let's raise the hand. I feel like I'm constantly being tempted to be in an echo chamber. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So, but I wanted to, like, how does it feel? I would love people to just say, how do you know? Or when you've felt, hey, I might be in one, what is your signal? How do you know? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to add that I think that Santa Cruz local, when they went online and meeting with them originally, when they were just thinking about what they were going to do. I think for me, that's been how I'm getting my local news, because they have, originally it's just seemed like we were Santa Cruz based, but they've sort of branched out and they're looking more at the whole county now. As they've gotten more mature in their resources, and I think when their avenues for gathering information, and I like, for me personally, I just like the way they put together a fast way of at least seeing what's happened over the last 7 years.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't feel like you're in an echo chamber, do you? Yeah, it feels a little more balanced.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
It's not biased. So it's coming to me not with an attitude, it's coming to me with information. And then I can determine which ones I want to attend, what position I want to take on.
And that is consistent with the research. If someone's coming at you with an agenda to convince you, that's when your backs go up. If it's just, hey, I'm giving you information, we're more comfortable. Okay, I think
You can repeat the question.
Mark, okay, no, I'll look over you.
Well, I know I'm in, but I find the time so frightening that listening to all the various personalities on MSNBC, it feels soothing to me. Like I know them after so many years, and then it helps me absorb the news without being terrified. Yes. And I have the illusion that I'm getting different points of view. It's because I watched various shows.
Right.
She's making the point that she's gets a degree of comfort out of being among kind of your people that see the world similarly, and it's relaxing. It can be very upsetting to be, you don't want to challenge yourself all the time and be in an argument.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, I've noticed that I feel like I'm in the echo echo chamber around going to different media sources, and then all of a sudden realized same story with, because it's from the Associated Press. And then all the independent reporters have gone, and it's all relying on the same single source.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Yes.
So, yeah, you're also like in an echo chamber. I subscribe to the Week magazine
Mhm,
Oh.
yeah,
and takes various views of those from different sources.
right.
Conservative, liberal,
Yeah,
new public, economist, whatever.
yeah,
So I think I'm getting different views, but when I read that magazine, I look at the things that I agree with, and go, oh yeah. I look at the things that I probably disagree with and go, oh no. So I'm, it's kind of rare that the other side is say, oh, that's a good idea. I didn't think of it.
right.
So I put myself in a chain. I just,
Yeah, so even, again, should we repeat? Yeah, even when you're out and getting a publication that aggregates across different points of view, like the Week, as you're reading, you're filtering a little bit. You're reacting and responding. You're saying thumbs up to the one I agree with, thumbs down to the one I disagree with. Yes, this is how we all feel. I'm going to talk to you and then I'll get to you, Mark. Yes.
When it's the other side, it's like,
It's not changing your mind too terribly much. Yeah, you're exposed to it. Right. And so, yeah, you're watching PBS. Yeah, you're watching PBS and you're feeling like you get a gentle presentation of the Fox News view, for example, as opposed to a more, and I'm going to go with Mark just for a minute. Yeah.
This is not new. I have always had approached all news with a degree of skepticism.
Mhm.
And I've asked myself, well, how do you know what the point of view is here? How do you know what you know? Quote people, who is that person? And the gift that we've had with the World Wide Web now is that you can find out. So if somebody is quoted as saying such and such is a certainty that's going to be corrupt and terrible and everything like that, you can go look that person up and see what else they've been interested in and get a perspective about why they're pushing that particular point of view. It isn't perfect, and of course nothing is, but I think that we should be approaching, I'm an old man. In my lifetime, I have had very strong feelings about things in the world and in news, and have found on numerous occasions that I've been dead wrong. And that is something that makes me value the fact that there are people out there who are very different perspectives. And it behooves us to find out who they are and what else are they interested
Yeah.
in, so that we
So
can make our own judgment.
thank you. Thank you. So Mark was saying that he uses the World Wide Web, and when he sees someone quoted, he actually does a little background research to see what else their background involves and what their points of view have been. Yeah, and that's a tool we all have access to.
You know what I would like to see? One day I would like to be sitting watching CNN or Fox or MS now and have somebody say, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. You're right. I'm never going to see that.
Never
Boy,
gonna
I'd
see
love
that.
to. Yeah, you convinced me. I was wrong. Those would just be golden words to me.
We have one more.
just a thought. I don't have a television. I haven't had television for over 40 years, 45 years. I just refuse to. And so when you're forced to read, you come home at 5 o'clock and say, turn it on and watch it, and there it is. Well, if you have to sit down and read the paper or a paper, well, then you decide how much you want to read and then how much research you want to do. And what I think about is, when did
when the televised news or radio news becomes so one-sided was when we don't we look at Walter Cronkite, this
Yeah.
he told us the truth, or Edward R. Murrow. I mean, I remember that as a little boy.
Right.
I mean, and I have of course seen all the video around McCarthy hearings, and having grown up in a home where I remember my grandmother kind of sort of defending McCarthy
Mhm.
because they were afraid of communists in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right.
But then I found, well, maybe NPR. I mean, I send the money, so I get vibes, but it's interesting to me that they will invite the other side on. I really admire the hardcore conservative or the supporter of the president of the government now to come on and talk and defend their position, and they don't attack the person. They just let them talk and ask them the probing question, and they defend their position. Like, well, I always admire that person who will come on to so people pay maybe NPRs with a liberal bias,
So
but to defend how they feel, even though it may be against what NPR in their mind stands.
Yeah. So the notion of the speaker doesn't have a television, and so that he was saying how when you're reading, you sort of have your own choice.
Well,
You're deciding, you're more in control. It's not just being broadcast to you.
Take,
And yeah.
so you read the Times, you read the Atlantic,
Mhm.
but then you read the Wall Street Journal.
Right. You're going to different sources and you're reading. You're the master of your media diet, and you also appreciate when you see different points of view coming on to PBS in particular, when you have seen that, and you like to see the different points of view. So yeah. Now I do want to say, someone Sue Roth, who's online, said she gets a form of vertigo when she switches between MS and Fox, and then she'll kind of turn off both. I am left with the repeating question of where can I find or trust that it is true? So, I think we're all living in this reality right now, and it's super challenging. So what can we
What are we gonna do about it?
what are we going to do about it? Yes.
So there is an app that allows you to have both Fox News, New York Times, for both sides of the aisle on the same app. So you can read the news from all of them. You have to scroll. I find that it's called Read Across the Aisle. It's an app.
Oh, read across the aisle. I'm not familiar with that app.
I would go flip back and forth. And as COVID was big, New York Times graphics every day changing. And then on the Fox side, yeah, they have some COVID coverage. But remember when Newsom went to a party in Napa?
Yeah.
And he was caught.
Yeah.
By the protocol. That was the top headline of Fox News. And I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah.
They were calling him up.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so the Read Across the Aisle app is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Read across the aisle
across the
app.
aisle.
Okay, cool. I'm going to look into that. That sounds neat.
It's interesting to get a little sense of what the other side is thinking, what both sides.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're going to switch into the more, what can we do? We're going to start getting our bag together and we're heading out of the cave. And again, we're going to start with the local. And as we remember, these with Good Times, I looked at the Good Times too, and all of them are a little different. Okay, they all cover different things. And I wanted to just share with you that when I say they cover different things, in fact, like this Pew Research study breaks down what are the main local news topics. And all of this should look super familiar to all of us. But the thing that's interesting about this graphic is they asked readers of all these local news topics, weather, crime, traffic, prices, government and politics, schools, all the way down to restaurants, clubs, and bars. What's important for your daily life, and that's the dark magenta. And so you see weather and crime and traffic, those kinds of things, my daily life. Please give me that information. And then that sort of lighter magenta, it's important, but not for my daily life. I don't need it every single day. And so that's where you kind of find the government and the politics is kind of in that spot there. And then you see this light pink. It's interesting. It's just interesting to follow. And so that's where you're starting to find the restaurants, sports, the arts and culture, community activities. So when you look at your local news sources, you can see how they're covering these common topics and which ones they're kind of emphasizing a little more relative to each other. And Tom, yeah, I don't know if you
Well, when Dave Regan came out to become publisher of the Santa Cruz Sentinel, he's from Connecticut. And he came out for the first day. I said, well, here's our weather package for every day. And he said, well, how much does that cost? And $700, several $100s a month. And he said, why are you doing that? The weather's the same goddamn thing every day around here. Yeah.
talk about another story about the focus group, where you had the focus group of homemakers and the focus group of entrepreneurs.
At one point we tried to reach out and find out what people were interested in. And we had some Dow Jones people who came out from corporate, and they were pretty good. They could predict really well about what demographics people are in. So we had to do a focus group, which brought in a couple interesting things. For one, I found out not a single person in Santa Cruz County has ever read People magazine. No one copped to it ever in any of their meetings. They didn't know what I was asking, but I never found a single person who read People. The second thing that we discovered was we were trying to figure out gifts to people to thank them for coming in and giving an hour or two of their time. So the first group we had in was a group of retired people and a lot of homeowners and people who had lived around here and maybe didn't work. And we had little plants that we gave them. And everybody said, oh, I can't believe this is beautiful. I'm going to take this home and plant it. And we've got letters afterwards. Thank you for the beautiful plant. It just goes very nicely. So the next day we had entrepreneurs in. We had the new computer guys come in. Not a single one of them took a plant with them. I mean, them about certain habits.
People, we're all very different. And the news, as we said before, the news media, they're trying to attract all these different sorts of audiences. And then the other thing to keep in mind, this is underscoring the omnivore business. Only a third of Americans rely often on more than one local news provider type. So look at that. And then there's 38% who don't look at any of the local news ever. And then 30%, they're just looking at one. And you can think of where you all fall in this. 2 or 3. I'm probably, honestly, 2 or 3 local. And then there's some, like 7%, 4 or more. And so we all just have to be conscious of what is our diet? What am I looking at locally, nationally? It's just something to keep in mind as we head out of the cave. And the large majority gets local news from other people. And I know this came up in a previous session where you were saying that most of your neighbors, they were not aware of a certain news issue, and you were sort of sharing it around, as I recall. And so that was very important. And actually, it is part of how we are all getting news. So, and then let's talk about this business of doing your own research. And this is where I wanted, Tom to weigh in. So all of this to me, when I first looked at it, I thought, okay, that kind of makes sense. Like comparing information from different sources that, looking at scientific studies, searching on Google, questioning what major news organizations are reporting, questioning what officials or government sources say, asking questions, looking for firsthand experiences or personal stories, discussing it with friends and family. Now, just look at, again, I just think that's interesting how that's happening less and less. But when Tom, you looked at it and,
Well, I had my experience was really valuable. I wish everybody could have sat in my desk for about 24 hours because the phone rang. And I talked to, how many people did I talk to on a daily basis? All of whom were either mad at us for doing something or for not doing something. And so I answered the phone, and it was very interesting. You would get, not only are you a horrible person because you wrote about some protests that maybe leaked out over into an area that didn't usually have protests. Often that involved gay rights. There would be a group doing a demonstration, we'd cover it, and the people who didn't like them would call it to protest. And so I could very soon, talking to them, to find out what was prompting them. You know, one lady I'll never forget said, "Well, I have my rights as a taxpayer," and I pointed out, well, you know, your taxes don't pay for a newspaper. You're talking about. And another one I had, which I don't want to sound like a snob, she said, "Not only do I believe this, but everybody at the bowling alley agrees with me." And you know, and so what happened was I very quickly could see what was agitating them, what got them going, and it was an interesting thing to just kind of observe and not say, you know, well, I don't judge you. You have your opinion. You have every right to it. And that was when I got the comment is, I have a right as a taxpayer, so I suppose that's true. Yeah, which
I'm interested in what you just said about that you got dozens of calls complaining. Did you ever get calls appreciating all the work that you do? And that feels to me something that I wish we did more of, because I think that people do appreciate it a lot. And we don't know. We only hear the bad stuff.
yeah, I certainly heard some of the good stuff. And usually you would hear that after work at the bar, or at the gym, or in the grocery store, or wherever, or if your next door neighbor chased you down.
But the editor is like, if I can interrupt, is like the principal at the school. It's when things are going wrong. That's when people are usually talking to the editor. But yes, as a reporter, yeah, people would call me up, love that story. People would write these. I have a collection of beautiful notes. I've had people send me bouquets of flowers. So yeah, people like one story at a time to the reporter. I wanted to add one other thing before I forget it, on this issue of when I had this happen just a couple times, where I was out, there was a divisive issue. I had been covering it, and I'd be at a meeting and people would realize, oh, she's one of the reporters, or she's the reporter for this paper I'm reading. And they would come up to me and they'd say, thanks, thanks for writing that story. You really got it. I'm like, okay. And then they'd say something. It was characterizing what I wrote, and it was completely wrong. It was just like, wow, And so that was one of those moments. And then I would hear people testifying sometimes in a meeting, and they'd be, waving my article or saying something. And it was the same kind of eerie feeling of, they were very selective in what they were kicking out. So that filter, that bias, that confirmation bias is in all of us. It's in me too. It's in all of us. But to see it played out like that, what I'm trying to say is what we're dealing with now is what has always been, but the media environment is not helping us, Okay, Tom, so I think, I know we have to take a break.
We're going to turn this thing on its ear.
Yeah, I'll do quickly one more thing. I found this to be super encouraging. This is another Pew study. They were asking them, what's a citizen's duty? So the very top thing is, I don't know if you can see this, vote in elections. Sorry about I can't actually click on that. But the second one, I was stunned, was respect the opinions and beliefs of those you disagree with. And this is across all age groups, 61% for the, 18 to 29, 64 for the over 65. Now, how many people are surprised by that? I mean, I was surprised. I thought that we lived in an era where maybe we just left that behind. And it's like maybe a few 30%. I thought that was still important. So anyway, I thought this was encouraging. So before we go on the break, we want to leave you with this as we launch into the final period. Are we naturally going to come together? Naturally, no. If you sit back and you're passive, no, you're going to have to take some action. And by the way, this was created by ChatGPT Tom asked it to create, we said a partisan Humpty Dumpty who fell off the wall in the style of a Lewis Carroll illustration. And that's what it came up with. So with that, we will take our break.
Our goal is going to be is how would a good reporter approach the situation? Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
5-minute.
break. Back, I'm going to try to project a little more by popular demand. All right, so
Okay.
what are we going to do? Let me see. Is this going to let me forward the? Hey, I seem to be weirdly frozen right now. Maybe I need to. Okay, let me see if this is going to work. Here we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to turn this on its head. We're going to challenge you. There.
Somehow went off from you.
What went off my?
Video flew.
Okay.
You probably collapsed it.
Okay, hold on.
The-
Oh, here it is. Here's the video. And now I have to hit Angitude.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, let me escape this again. Sorry, technical difficulties, everybody. We'll try it over again and see if we can get this going again.
Sharing the screen still.
Is that working, everybody? Oh, screen sharing is paused. How do I share? Okay, share. And I'm going to do I'm doing the entire screen, I think. I hope I'm doing this right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Is that working yet? Okay, I'm going to stop share and then I'm going to try all over again. I'm going to start from the beginning. Bear with us, everyone. And I'm going to share. This
You're
guy.
okay now.
Is that working?
There you go.
All right. Thank you for your
Can you
patience.
go into what's the presentation mode? Can you?
I'm sorry. What else do I need to do now? Maybe you just.
Get in there. That's a little bit more obscene. So what do you mean?
We don't want that. We have to swap screens. We have to swap the screen.
Yeah, stop this.
So let's try again. And I will do this. Are you still seeing the wrong one?
That's it. Good work.
All right. Here we go.
Okay. There's a fellow by the name of Tim Urban. And Tim is an interesting fellow. He's a political major out of Harvard. And he's a blogger. And he has one of the most unique outlooks onto how to share information that I've seen. And it really has given me hope. So I want to go through this. And essentially, if you take a look at the upper right, you have division, which is most of us feel is happening in our world. We sort of look at the world, are we on the left or are we on the right? Are we in the center? Where do we stand politically? And I think all of us probably ultimately think about where we stand, where other people stand, and that's how we tend to look at the world. Well, Mr. Urban took it around and he turned that chart up on its head. And we got four divisions now, and they have nothing to do with where you are right or left. Up at the top is the scientist level, and this is the people who take on information and look at the world with this kind of attitude. I don't know a lot. I don't know about this subject. I want to learn. I'm going to find out what's happening, and I'm going to build myself a position based on the things that I learned. Not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to have people in my life that do the same thing. We may come to different conclusions. And we're going to have a chat, drink some wine, talk about this, and I might listen and say, that's a good point. I haven't, as I was wishing cable TV would do. I even would like to see this in campaigns. I wrote a column one time saying what I wished for was a commercial of a politician saying, my opponent is a really decent guy, and I think he's really wrong about what he's talking about, but he's a good human being. Remember, John McCain did that with Barack Obama. Well, anyway, so ideally, if you're at that level, you are trying to find out the truth of world around you and you're willing to share and learn, and maybe you can convince somebody else. One step down, we have my favorite, which is the sports fan. That is the person who sits and is watching a football game, and it's hard to tell whether the running back got into the end zone or not. And there's a big argument, and the coaches are discussing it, they're yelling at the ref. And so you're a 49er fan, say, what are you going to do? You're going to say, well, he didn't see it right. That was a touchdown. The 49ers should get a touchdown. They got screwed. But if you look at that play and you find out that the running back did not score, you're not going to want to have a cheap touchdown. You're going to look and say, yeah, I'm really for the 49ers, but they didn't score. There's the evidence. And I can accept that because we want the game to be fair and honest. And this is how we're going to look at it. That's a fair way to look at the world. If you're comfortable with your views and you want to defend yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, in the back of your mind, wouldn't it be a good idea if you thought, maybe I don't have this all together?
Follow the rules.
And you're following the rules, and that's not a bad way to be. Now we're down to our attorneys. Do we have any attorneys in here? And there's nothing wrong with this, but an attorney has a job to do. An attorney represents somebody's interest. And if that interest does not convince the jury, well, I did my best, but in the interview after the trial, I can bet you that the attorney will turn to you and say, did everything I can. This is what I believe, and that was a wrong verdict and all that. Well, you expect that you don't have a problem. Nobody has a problem with an attorney sticking to his or her guns.
They cherry pick.
Yeah.
Cherry pick.
Everybody knows it. You're not going to say, wasn't he really guilty? No.
But it's within the context of, a court.
So, isn't it true?
Arguing both sides, and so in that context, it works.
Isn't it true that jail is filled with people who are innocent? Well, then we have number 4, the zealot. And I think we're all pretty familiar with the zealots.
I think
I'm in this group. I represent what they represent. They're my kind of people. God damn it, I am for this group 100%. And don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything bad about this person. I don't want to hear it. I'm not going to listen to it. And,
they compare it almost to you have a picture of your child in your wallet.
Yeah.
Sharing it around. And how do you feel when someone says, oh, adorable, the prettiest, cutest little baby I've ever seen? And you're like, yeah, I like you. We're good. And then someone else says, there's something, what's wrong with his ear or her nose? Or, they make some negative comment about your child. And then you're like, I don't like you very much. Yeah.
Or you're going to say, you get a banana for your monkey.
Right. So, anyway, that's the zealot. It's sort of like you have this almost personalization or personification.
So my question is it possible for us to identify this way? And then that means, tonight you're with friends and you all agree on something. Go ahead, be zealous. You can be a zealot for the evening. I've done worse. Or you can also say we're going to have a high-level discussion, and I really feel strongly about this. Where are you coming from that you don't agree with that? So I just think it is a very interesting way to armor yourself. I heard other good ideas here earlier about I check it out. I check out what I've been led to believe. What was the Mark
you look into the background of the sources. Consider the source.
Maybe it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, it's about the website.
The week.
Right across that.
Yeah, across the aisle. Channel 9 KQED, I don't think they do it anymore, but they had would ask questions and you would fill out the form and you would say, this is my opinion. And then they'd come up with a page that said, are you sure? And that it was always interesting to go through and look at things in a different way. So I would argue this is a good way to separate ourselves up and down rather than to the left and right. I like the idea, and I think it has, maybe we can go somewhere.
Yeah, indeed. So,
So you're the
so
scientist, you're the social scientist. How do we get
so I
there?
think we're basically going to just talk about our diet. We're going to take a little survey right now to get a sense of how many folks, I'm just going to say, watch KSBW every day. Yeah. Not every day. Okay, most days. Okay, there are a few.
When they have you.
How many people are listening to local radio? Okay. Local radio, any local radio. Okay, got it. Case Squid, yeah. Okay, how many people are looking at Nextdoor or Aptosia? One or the other or both?
What's
Okay.
that?
Facebook, the Facebook page that's focused on Aptos. And, I don't know if there's something like that for Santa Cruz. I just don't know. But okay, so a few folks. How about the Sentinel or the Lookout? Okay, so that's most of us. All right. And how about the Good Times or Santa Cruz Local? All right. Okay, so that's where most of us are living right now, is that print world. Now, here's my question. How well informed do you feel about just the local news? I mean, how many say, hey, I'm 100% there? Okay, I see some heads really shaking here. 80%? Okay, okay. 50%. All right, less than 50%. I actually kind of feel like I'm not really a scholar in this stuff. So one of the things as we're leaving the cave is also to think about knowing what you don't know. Just being aware of that and knowing the sources where you can address those gaps. And as we said last time, the breaking news, our bias as former journalists, is that hey, we love breaking news. Okay, that's the adrenaline's going. You're all basically adrenaline junkies at heart, so we love it. But we also know that those immediate news sources it's an unfolding story, and you're not going to get the best information. So we tend to favor, as most of the people in this room, the Sentinel, the Lookout, the Good Times, the Santa Cruz Local. People taking a little longer to write about stuff. Yeah.
So, things that your talk with Blackson also help me think about. The frustration about local news is that these issues are so hotly contended sometimes, and you get like the columns and this and the, but there are articles and coverages in these and maybe even some others, and it would be I wish there were a source that would say what each of these folks is doing. Like,
Oh, yeah.
in the piece you did, you showed that there were only a couple of issues and by all of them. And it would be really enormously helpful to me personally if there was a source that I could go that would be online, I assume, that would say, oh, this issue is being covered next door or the Sentinel or KSDW, and you could have a link to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's thinking about doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So having the speakers asking, can we have a source that analyzes all the coverage in local news outlets and sort of compares them or notes what is getting covered and what isn't getting covered across different sources and the links too. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a great question. And the issue that we have is I think one of the reasons we pointed this out in our earlier meetings, especially the first one, is that wanting a place where we can go to really check things out that's more the Encyclopedia Britannica type thing of what is the truth. I think that model's gone economically. I don't think there is anything around that can support that sort of publication. And I think what the implication of that, in my opinion, is that each one of us has to look at the world and figure out what information is really important to me. How do I learn? Is my goal to learn or
Score points.
or score points against you in an argument?
Yeah.
And that's a significant question. And I think, unfortunately, it's not great. My hope is that someday our society will take a good look at itself and say, we need this sort of general knowledge, a place to go we can trust. And maybe there's somebody out there who can find a way to provide that information. But in this current world, I don't see how you pay for that. I don't see how anybody would provide the money to say, go out and find something that I might not agree with.
I did want to add, though, that when we do our AI exercise,
Yeah.
you can get a chance to
Yeah,
actually create that.
looking.
You can create that on your own. I do think so. But other sources, by the way, one thing that did not exist when I was a reporter back in the 80s and the 90s was government websites. These are amazing. I mean, how many people have used government website to do some research on things? That's really great stuff. You can get the agenda, you can download all the reports. I just, I don't know. Sometimes they might be a little hard to navigate, but that's your treasure trove, in my opinion, for local news. Yes. Yes. And
In the first Trump administration, I did fact checking for publications that we generated in the health education area. And in the first Trump administration, I just watched EPA website.
oh, it's true.
And the ability to get trusted information on lead poisoning or, toxic waste or whatever. In this administration, CDC, a lot of the major government. So referring to a government source is right now
A little problematic. Thank you. And especially for the federal. Because in my world, I work in the education. I have worked in the education world, and they were taking data sets that, taxpayer had spent millions of dollars over like 40 years to collect. I know of one project, and they just disappeared that.
The point was made that government websites these days may not be as complete and as accurate as it once were.
Yeah, because sometimes, anyway. Good point. Thank you so much. And then the state news, lots of interesting resources out there, and you may know of others. And if you do, please share. Cal Matters. They're kind of like almost like an AP for California, and they just cover all the news. They bring it together. They share it with you'll see them in the Sentinel every now and then. It's a Cal Matters story. There's a website that Tom likes called Rough and Tumble. You can look it up. We have the links in here. Here are all the pictures. And then our
state news, anything that pertains statewide, which I find in local media, there's a real gap in state coverage. So it's a good place to check.
And then California Local, which is an effort, also kind of an aggregator at the state level by some friends of ours.
Yeah. If you know anything about Cruz IO, Chris Nicholson is the head of it. He's trying to get this off the ground.
Yeah. So anyway, good stuff. Now, this is the AI portion. I know that there's how many people are concerned about AI? Let's just shake it out here. Let's just get it out. Fair, absolutely fair. We should be concerned, absolutely. And I just want to lay out what has been written about by Pew. I'm quoting this from Pew. How many of you share these concerns that leaning on this stuff is going to weaken your critical thinking, your creativity, maybe even your relationships? That's a concern, right? It's going to lead to widespread job loss, certainly workplace disruption. Concerned about that one? Yeah, everybody. Increase distrust of information. What's accurate? Okay, so there's some concern out there for sure. Healthy human agency in life, like that whole thing of I'm living through my friend, the bot, that kind of thing. Increased cheating and shortcuts in education. Anyone who's an educator is feeling that, right? You've seen that. And it magnifying biases that are just out there, kind of baked in, and that just gets magnified because of the algorithm. So there's a concern too. So I wanted to get that all out because I share those concerns too. And really what we wanted to talk about AI with this group is how you can use it to kind of counter all the programming that's going on right now, in the media, how it's sort of getting us away from finding a common core. And so This has been a little passion project for me. I will share my link to my Substack. But once a month. I don't do this a lot. It's a passion project, but I will take my background from, research and psychology, education, and I'll take my background from journalism, and I'll actually, part of my job has been for the past dozen or years or so, working with computer scientists who are trying to use new types of technology to teach in some context or another. And basically, I'm the person in the room trying to make sure the humans are in the mix. So what I've seen is these large language models are becoming potentially, you can train them yourself. That's what I want to clarify to you. This is like having a teaching assistant, if anyone's been a teacher, or a grad student, or someone that you're trying to train. You can kind of set what you need it to do. You can give it the information. And the way I've been playing with it, you can see some of my little experiments on this blog if you're interested, is I will take something from some work that someone's done, maybe a historian, explaining how the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, or someone who's an expert in argumentation. And how do you have, how do you get a basic premise? How do you get a counter argument? How do you, go back and forth in that dialectic? So they have these frameworks for that. And I'll put that into the large language model and I'll say, hey, I want you to analyze issue X or this person's position according to this framework. All right. According to the principles of good argumentation, for example. And it will do it. And it will come out with a very interesting, thorough analysis that when people say, how do you find the truth? How do you get good information? It will also cite everything that's there. Yes, are there still hallucinations? And you'll find that source doesn't even exist. Or they slightly mischaracterized something that was, yes, you have to watch out for that stuff. But it's getting better and better. And it has just been mind-blowing to me because I've been working with this stuff. Again, I've really seen it evolve since it first came out with ChatGPT in 2023. It's getting a lot better. And how many people are already using AI a little bit for your work? Okay. Are you in the same place with me? Anybody feeling like I've said anything completely crazy? So anyway, that is what I wanted to share. Now,
before you get to that, let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
Or a couple things. I took an experiment from last week's class where we were talking about
move ahead and show this.
Oh, okay.
Here's your demo.
The builder's remedy. So I went to, after reading all the articles here and talking here, I thought, well, there's a lot I don't know about this. And I thought, what would the newspaper's position want to be? Where would we take this builder's remedy? And you've got the people who are proposing the housing development, and they're going to make $1 zillion. And on the other side, you have people who are saying this is terrible for my neighborhood. So what I asked is, what is the good government solution? If I have a good principled government, and maybe I don't live near the property and I don't have an interest in either side, what is the good government way to go about this? And the idea was balanced housing decisions for the common good is what it came back to. And what it, in a sense, in a nutshell, it said there are two really problematic things that government is not addressing here. We have no real way of settling this argument. So if you're the good government solution, you encourage housing and you discourage trashing of neighborhoods. What is the process you're going to go through to find out what should we do in this case? Do we have guidelines? I can assure you that most governments do not have their guidelines. It's whoever wins the argument. And this is not serving us in any way. And I thought that's really a good use of AI.
And it actually, you can tell it to generate, like it generated this citizen's guide the key questions you have to ask. See those there. And the different news, it was giving you sources of information, like local, the law,
And
advocates,
if
state.
you're a
Yeah.
good- if you're a good citizen, you're going to advise the government. Here's what you should be doing. That the builder's remedy is kind of evidence that our system has failed. It's not a good solution. You've got, you have a situation where the state is taking over local planning. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you have a situation where local city councils are not approving any housing, and that's been the case in Santa Cruz for how many years?
Right.
So basically, we failed. Now we failed in that argument. And what I wish, I know what I would write the editorial about. It would be, but that I think is a good use of AI. One other thing that I want to point out that I read a really good article somewhere, which I don't remember. Smart people are saying, don't be so positive to me about AI. Don't praise me so damn much. You're not my friend. You're my guy. There's a difference. And so I think that when you're going to get into this about the way you ask the questions.
Yeah. And again, my brother was visiting and he was at some corporate talk in Pebble Beach and they paid this guy a lot of money to speak to them. And what killed me is, oh yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I do, so he's making a good living at it. But here's his prompt. And this is the exercise that if you want to pull out your phone right now and you open up your app right this minute, and Mark, I don't know if you've got your phone, but you can say, I want you to be and you can talk to it too. You don't have to write this down. You just literally hit that microphone and say this. I want you to be my thought partner on the local issue of fill in the blank. Okay. And then say to it, acting as a local government expert, what media sources would you recommend that I follow to understand that issue? And then this last one is interesting. This was a new one. Please interview me so I can give you more information. It flips it. Instead of it giving you everything, it starts to pull from you too. It interviews you. So and here's a quote from him. And this is what I have found too, this notion of if you're using it well, like you're not using it, you collaborate with it, you get it gives you feedback, you give it feedback, you're coaching it, you have these multi-turn sort of conversations, and you are refining and refining. So that's what I mean by it's an assistant. So does anyone want to take 5 minutes and play with this? Everyone's kind of got their arms folded. I encourage you to do it. Open up your phone. Think about the issues you want to work on. Think of what's burning in your imagination. Do you have anything? Okay, right, and that's fair. We're okay with that.
Would you consider using it if there was if you felt armed with a strategy to deal with it well?
Probably not. I'll send you an article from the Atlantic that they talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have to be skeptical. I think like anything else, we have to be skeptical of this. But there are ways to use tools and there are ways not to use them. And our tools are not working real well now. So I think we've got to try something.
Yeah, the thing that while people are, why don't you, I won't say anything. I really want people to try this.
How do you get it?
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
so
well-
have you opened up? We'll help out. So do you have ChatGPT? I haven't put in.
Read the article.
Do you? Was it? No, I didn't.
I was like, that's the data report. Long distance. Process it.
Oh.
I'm just giving an example.
Well, everybody work out this. I'm going to 5 minutes. As far as AI is concerned, I think we have a long way to go. Yeah.
Give me 5 minutes. Last one.
Pardon me? I'm talking. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got focused in on facts. Yeah.
I think they could be connected to Twitter. Yes.
Where it's say. And then it's a second.
Okay.
It's not.
We're gonna reconvene in a second. Wait. Some people are upset about not having.
I did. I asked the same question.
Yes.
Give me a curated list with someone working.
We'll get back. We're answering a couple of questions. Wait a second. Set it up in recent. One thing.
So that's all I want to. I've experienced that. All right, so we have.
Sorry, we're back now.
We're back.
Sorry about.
We'll be back. And if you want to try it at home, please do. But I did, Doug, could I put you on the spot? Did anyone actually do it in the group? You're still Allison and Doug.
That's my question to it was, I want you to be my thought partner on the local issue. And I think as a local government expert, what media sources would you recommend? So he gave me a list of by sections called the top section is local on the ground reporting. Here, San Francisco Chronicle, Mission Local, Hyperlocal, the Oakland side, policy, and then another section is policy and data-driven analysis. Cal Matters, the Turner Center for Housing Innovation, and then on the national context, ProPublica, New York Times, and then Voices from Lived Experience. So that gives you a lot of sources you can go to and do some research. Okay.
And you said you already use a lot of those. Yeah.
And Jim and I were saying, don't go to it for facts. Don't go to it for facts. Just go for it as an assistant.
As an assistant. And that's why, Mark, I was saying you could probably say to it, any issue you're concerned about, what are the local sources I should be looking at? Yes. Sure. Yep.
And the first thing they wanted was me to create an account.
Ah,
Question.
you're uncomfortable. Yeah. Into their database.
To the database, but that pool of information that they draw out.
Yes. This is true.
Since I don't know all the, I don't understand it. It made me worry. Why can't I just use their thing without having to give them my personal information?
You can.
You can. You can.
Yeah, you don't.
You can.
Just ask a question.
Just ignore it.
I think what is happening is we are looking at these are the tools of today and tomorrow. I think some things will work, some things won't work. But to wrap up, I would say the one thing I can tell you is it's not going to be 1973 all over again. I wish it were. I loved working at the newspaper. I learned more than anyone could ever have learned any other way than dealing with people over a 35-year career. And when I left, I had very few enemies. I've gotten along well. Santa Cruz is very important to me. I love this town. And in some ways, as I go back over some comments I've received, I feel a good feeling coming back. But I'll tell you the most important thing that one reporter ever said, that's the great Pete Hammond, regarding newspapers. And excuse the expression, but don't ever fall in love with the newspaper. He said it'll break your fucking heart. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for playing.
Is that website on the comments for the at the start of the audio?
Yeah, read it.
Download on my phone.
Yeah.
It doesn't ask them for anything. You select
Boston or New York Times or whatever, and you can just click on the. I'd like to take a look. I think it's several right now.
Or, and I also want to mention that Tom is working on a book, so you can look forward to that. Can you say a little bit about it?
I was trying to get it done for this class because I figured I'd get a few sales that way. But it got delayed, and it's still in process. Writing a book has been one of the most difficult things that I ever could have attempted. I've learned a lot. And stay tuned, I deal with, I'll have it out.
Yeah, tell us about mine, I said, oh, look at the hard.